Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're coming to you live from Abuja, and Dr. Mailaifia, former Deputy Governor of CBN, giving us his perspective on what he thinks of this economic recovery growth plan. Do you agree with some economists? I mean, some of them have told us severally that we need to do something about a budget system. Because if you have a yearly budget system and you have plans like this, it just may have a challenge. They think we should have something, maybe a 2 or 3 or even a 4-year budget system or plan to enable this sit properly. Do you agree with that?
Well, not necessarily. I wouldn't agree with that. What we need to is to go back to the culture of planning.
But I thought we've always been planning.
Not really. We gave up real national plans a long time ago. In place, we had what you call some kind of programs, needs, transformation agenda. These were mostly like political programs, but not...
Even concrete. The rolling plans, the different governments.
There are rolling plans. I want to see real national economic plans, development plans, like we used to have, that were, by the way, very successful. Especially the second National Development Plan for Rehabilitation, Reconciliation, Reconstruction was one of the most successful ever. And it worked. But the IMF World Bank came and told us that we did not need economic plans, that it's marked of communism and socialism and Soviet-type planning. So we were kind of compelled to give it up, especially during the times of structural adjustment. The Asians ignored the IMF and World Bank on that. Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia and others, they ignored the IMF and continued with their economic development plans, and they've been very successful as a result of that. All plans have some limitations because you don't have total knowledge of the world, and there's always uncertainty, especially in an era of rapid globalization. But having a plan imposes a kind of discipline on the decision makers and provides a framework. So it is always very good to have an economic development plan. And within that economic development plan, you have annual budgets. What I would insist on is like they do in France. They put it in their constitution. If you don't pass the budget by 31st December, that government must resign. It's constitutional. By law, you must pass it.
Can we do that here?
But with the way we are going and all these stories about budget padding and all those things, no, we are in April now. And I'm not sure the budget has actually taken off. That is simply unfortunate. And we can't go on like this.
When you look at this economic recovery and growth plan, yes. Let's sink into it. You have a middle class that constitutes about 60% of the population in this country, and most of these are not employed. You have a plan like this.
Yes.
How do you get the middle class that is supposed to be the engine of growth of any economy?
Yes.
How do you get that middle class to be robust and able to increase in its spending capacity?
I used to live in Tunisia when I worked for the African Development Bank, and the government of Ben Ali at that time actually had a deliberate plan for middle class. Because the middle class is the bulwark of national stability. It is also the bulwark of democracy, because they intermediate between the very poor and the super rich. You need that middle class to stabilize a country because they have a vested interest in stability. So he made it a conscious policy to have policies for the family, talking about teachers, journalists, professors, doctors, people in the professions. He even, gave them subsidized car loans and all that. He deliberately tried to create a middle class with disposable income, because with that they can go to supermarkets, they can buy goods and services and so on and so forth. It can have a very positive spin-off on the whole of the economy. So we need a conscious policy also for the middle class and for families. That will help to stabilize the country and also to boost aggregate demand and create jobs and all those things. So there are a lot of supply side policies that we need to put into place in order to shore up the middle class. Because, as you know, during the military era, the middle class disappeared. Even professors could not afford to operate a car. But happily, the middle class is coming back. I think we need more and more of the middle class. That is not to say we should forget the poorest people, because they are the majority, actually. The poorest are the majority.
How does interest rates, which we have in Nigeria, for instance, now,
Yes.
let's be practical, you want to go to a bank and
Yes.
get a loan, a facility. By the way, some of the banks aren't even giving that at the moment.
Yes.
But say you have a bank who is ready to give that at 27%. How do you grow an economy at a percentage that is more than 1?
Well, it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. By the way, as you know, the CBN normally publishes the interest charges that all the banks charge. They put maximum, minimum, average for every single bank. And that is to make potential clients to know which bank is charging less and which is charging more and the rest. But the average is generally very, very huge. You're unlikely to get anything less than 20% in most cases. Ironically, or paradoxically, if you're an oil company, you get less. And if you're just Mr. Average, you get very, very high charges. The banks argue that, look, we can't give anything less than the MPR. If the MPR is 14%, we have to charge over and above that by a significant magnitude just to break even. And they also argue that, look, if you open a branch of a commercial bank, in, let's say, Kauranamoda or somewhere, you have to buy a generator. You have to buy a generator that supports the generator, and you have to buy the generator that supports the generator that supports the other generator because of power. And that adds huge costs, not to talk of security, because of banditry, armed robbery, and all of that. And they simply add all these costs and pass them to you and me. That's what they're doing. That's their argument.
That's the reason for the MPR being high.
No,
that's 13%.
No, that's the reason for the interest charges being high. The CBN argues that the MPR has to be kept high because of inflation. And also they gave a reason which I find quite irritating, actually. They said that they want to attract foreign investors. You want to attract vulture investors. I call them vulture investors because they are fair weather friends. They come in because the rate is attractive, and so long as there's a little storm, they just carry their money and run. So that's not the kind of investors we should be looking for. We should be looking for long-term investors who believe in Nigeria, who believe in our economy, and are here for the long haul, in which we can genuinely partner together. So you can't run a central bank just to please some bunch of foreigners. It is not.
Well, it's also interesting to know that the president also said that they will grow local economies and they will thrive and do very well. So we'll hope that will also come to be. But what do we do about what we were reminded of yesterday, that 66% of our revenue is used in servicing our debts, which the Emir of Kano said that much yesterday. So if that were the case, how can this plan help in any way?
Well, I think the plan also puts agreements to widen the tax base, not to increase taxes, because in a time of recession, it is not, you are not going to get much if you continue to tax the few people that are genuinely paying their taxes. They'll simply be discouraged. There's a Laffer curve in economics that explains when you tax people below a certain level,